Welcome to the Jesus.Plus.Life morning show. We love spending Wednesday mornings with you. If you're new to the Jesus.Plus.Life morning show, it's a series of cheery conversations to add Jesus truths to our life a little bit at a time. Today we'll be hearing from Sonny and Danielle. They're going to be talking about your dreams and your callings, what that means, how to tell the difference, and how to track where you are at along the journey. Now's the time to get comfy, grab a coffee, invite your friends to join us, and let's start this conversation now.
Okay, so dreams and calling. Those are two things that you talk about often enough, but I think sometimes the line between the two could get a little blurred or confusing, and especially as a young adult when you're trying to figure everything out. To start, I'd love to talk about both, but to start, what's the difference, would you say, between dreams and dreaming and your calling?
Wow. Well, it would be nice if they line up really, really well.
Yeah, hopefully.
And they usually are close. Our dreams are something we're definitely working towards, dreaming of, literally, and they're way out in front of us. And our calling is something that God puts in every one of us. And that's something we can act out today. And it's something we can actually be putting feet to, even when it's not very dreamy. That's the difference. It's the work, and then the Bible talks about work and faith. It's work is the calling, faith is the dream, but that calling and dream will start to come together as you get older. But for me, I would work at churches, and I was doing anything that I needed to do, especially because I was trying to earn my way to become that position that I really wanted. So that was me doing the calling of just be faithful to do everything I'm asked, and then go above and beyond, work harder, and try to earn that respect and earn that position so that I can get to the dream that I ultimately have. So if that means picking up a mop because I'm to serve people and I'm to serve God, which is my calling, someone else might have a calling for children. Well, maybe they start out, in a daycare where they're oh my gosh, this is really, but they have this dream to work as a principal and really affect change in kids' lives. Well, it takes some time and effort to get to that ultimate dream.
So you said about calling being something that God plants inside of you or calls from you. So when you become a Jesus person, you kind of could have this quick tendency to okay, now I've got to quick get this all together as a Jesus person. But I'm new to this thing, and maybe it's not even that you're new, because you could struggle with this maybe throughout your Jesus journey of knowing what your calling is, or questioning it, or did I have the right one in mind? Or did I hear that correctly? How did you know?
Oh gosh, it's a good question, because I think I didn't know the full amount of my calling, or I even thought it looked different. For instance, when Sean and I went to Bible college, I went as a freshman, he was already a sophomore, and you have to declare or get in a major and a minor. Right there. First day, I'm I don't know.
Could I sample some classes?
Yeah, I'm I want to go into ministry, and I'm not even sure what that means. But I'm at a Bible college, and I thought I was going to be an architect or a designer, and I thought I was going to go play volleyball at a college, and instead here I am at this little Bible college, and they need me to decide. I just know God said, you need to do this. So I did, which then led to meeting Sean right away. And so I knew I was in the right place, but had no idea what it looked like. And so I put missions and youth ministry. Now we did youth ministry for 13 years. Missions? Heck no. And I didn't even know the word definition very well at that point. So I think sometimes we go, I feel like I'm floundering. And for the whole career of 4 years of college, I just was still I don't know. Am I going to change my major, my minor? And in the end, I graduate. And I think maybe we will work with teenagers in youth ministry. And then we graduate, and they say, Sonny, do you want to be a credentialed pastor? You got all the courses for it. And I went, women can do that? And I wasn't even
what do you mean?
From the backwoods. Well, yes, I was. That's a lie. I was totally from the backwoods. I was from a ranch. But I'm women can do that? They're sure. And I went, oh. And actually my calling is to be a female in ministry, but that was the suggestion of some guy who's like, you want to get credentialed?
Yeah.
So I think we can feel like I'm grasping for straws and I'm all over the place, and we think there's something wrong with us and that. And maybe that swirling is God just going, just keep listening because it's going to click. And even at 25 and 30 and 35, it was starting to unfold for me. It doesn't happen at 18 and 19, but we want it to.
That's so true. And the floundering and the listening, and I think when you're in that mode, then you're like, did I really hear it? Did I this? Like, and you start placing those question marks,
Yes.
and then you could make a quick jump to something else,
Right.
and so forth. Did you
Yes.
ever feel like maybe you messed up your calling or like
Yeah.
chose the wrong thing? How, like, cause I love the practicals and I wanna like bring everyone into this. Like, so you're going, I know that I heard God and I know, and then you had that, was it professor that you said,
Yeah.
that said that to you? What are some of the ways, like along the way, that you knew you received like that guidance, or that you heard from God, or that you were told that like maybe some things in the practical that we could watch out for if we're in like that floundering mode of our calling?
I think I don't look back and remember one time a friend of mine giving me advice that got me forward in my calling. And I would like to think I had good friends, but when they're walking the same road as me, or a step ahead, step behind, or right along with me,
Right.
they don't really have the foresight, the vision. I don't remember ever having a friend say, well, what about switching colleges, or what about doing this? And it ever was right. I don't ever remember that, but I do remember people who were 10, 20, even 30 years older saying something to me. And when it felt peaceful and right in my spirit, I went, I think that might be right. So the first one, the professor, do you want to be a pastor? Also, I thought and questioned for probably 7 or 8 years, did I do the right thing to be in youth ministry? Because Sean was getting paid to do youth ministry. I wasn't. So he got the job and I was like, yay, I get to tag along and do this. But I didn't get paid for it. So that's why I was doing whatever in the church. I was back then you still called women secretaries. Yeah. Like, I'm not 80, but you were still called a secretary. I was a church assistant, or I did it for free. And in fact, I did one day at a veterinary clinic, thought that'd be fun to work with animals because I love dogs. And they said, okay, your job for 20 hours a week is to clean up the poop out in the yard after the dogs go out. And I went, I have so missed it. Like for sure I got the wrong degree because I can't even get paid for what I'm called to do, but I can get paid to be at a vet clinic. Scooping poop. Like, that's devastating to hear when you go, I have a college degree. Well, I lasted one day, and of course I was questioning it. Then we actually had Isaiah. We had moved to Florida, and I had the pastor come to me and say, Sonny, you're running a school of ministry, which I created myself to pay myself. Like, it was like they pay tuition. I make $12,000 a year. They get an education. They go into ministry, and it's their college. And I had the pastor of the church come to me and say, will you be the youth pastor? And I said, oh, you mean Sean? And he goes, no, I mean you. Sean's full-time on the road as an evangelist. I mean you. And I went, me? Like, I had now questioned my calling for so long. I couldn't imagine that he would want me. And he did. And he offered me a salary that was equal to what he would give a man in that position. And that was such a huge step forward in realizing my calling may have panned out. Now, this is 8 or 9 years after I'm asked by a professor, do I want to get credentials?
Wow.
So what I would say is it can be years and we want it to be months or weeks, but when we know it's normal for it to be years, we won't get as stressed out about it.
Yeah.
Having a dream can feel daunting, far-fetched, or even silly. Many of us have had dreams as kids but never pursued them for whatever reason. Often our dreams seem impossible or unlikely, but have you ever considered that is exactly what a dream is supposed to be? I love what Sonny said in this segment. She said, a calling is something God puts in every one of us that we can act out today. Work is the calling, faith is the dream. So what dreams do you have that require faith, and what is one thing you can do to work toward it? Don't be shy about putting your dreams in the comments. Sometimes the first step is saying it or typing it out loud. We want to celebrate your dreams with you. So let's hear what else Sonny and Danielle have to say about your calling.
You first mentioned with calling, like getting your degree. And I think there's probably a large majority of us that maybe have a degree and go, this is
not what I'm doing.
Or now I became a Jesus person and have this understanding of calling and see that like, wow, I'm called to something very different from what I got a degree in, or maybe not even a degree. Maybe I'm in a job that I'm like, yep, this is the veterinary clinic. This is not it. What, like, in that season or situation, because it's a season, how do you start, like, on your own or taking steps without jumping ahead of God and what he's wanting you to learn in that season? Take those steps to start moving towards your calling. And what does that look like? Like, does it always have to be like your full-time job?
Right. It doesn't have to be your full-time job. And I think it's doing whatever you're doing right now really well. So if you're wanting to be a leader, are you being a leader in the position you're in? You know, we have a lot of people that work for us at the Exchange, and I look at some of them and go, you realize, I think to myself, you're a junior, but you could manage one of these. You could go open a branch for us. You could be an exchange for us, like a general manager. You're 16, or you're 17, but you are exceeding the expectations we would have on you. That right there is causing people who do have the ability to hire, do have the ability to give raises, the ability for me to go, actually they have it. Let's get them on the manager track. But what happens is that people think, well, actually, I am just working at the Exchange. I'm just washing dishes. I'm just cutting peppers. It's like, no, what you're doing, and if you get on that track, you could be someone great. So I think it's in the moment, really, really realizing every single season and every day in that season, you're building yourself towards your calling.
And there's something that pairs with that really well that you talk about often, and it's that of excellence. So something early on that you talk to staff about and so forth is excellence in everything that we do. And I think that's like really where you started with perspective, but then also like doing what you do with excellence. How did you stay on that path of excellence when you were like really frustrated or tired of being in this, like, I'm ready to move on to the next thing or to move closer to my calling? Like, how do you stay that path of excellence, and what does that look like?
I really love that I've never gone somewhere and was given a title right off the bat. I always had to earn it. And I think I got that perspective from being a woman, being in ministry, and you're just not given a title. And in fact, sometimes you might have the title of pastor, but I doubt you are often like, I'm Pastor Danielle. It tends to just feel a little more natural to go, I'm Danielle, I'm just Danielle. And so it's that earning mentality you get. And I think that I learned that early on, that there's satisfaction in earning it rather than being given it. And so it's a change of perspective on, will I get ahead by being given a title, by being given a position, by being the 19-year-old manager, or will I actually enjoy earning it and I'm the 20-year-old manager, but everybody already respects me. It wasn't given, it was earned. I have found way more satisfaction in earning. And I want to earn that people see a work ethic and see excellence and see me not go just good enough. Like, just good enough should never be good enough for anyone. And when people aren't watching, I feel like God is watching, and I want him to always give me more. I do. I want more in everything about life. But I don't feel like God's going to give me more until he can trust me with more. So I'm really, my scale is God first.
Well, and until we're trustworthy with the little, right? Like, of the not just showing up to work just to be at work and collect our paycheck, but to do even the unnoticed things and do them with excellence. That I see a piece of trash on the floor and I'm just gonna pick it up to make this place better, even though it's not my job.
Well, and I think that we can do that when somebody's looking, but I think real integrity is to do it when somebody's looking and to also do it when nobody's looking. And I still will be walking in a parking lot to Target, and Sean will bend down to get a piece of paper off the ground. That is not our responsibility, you know? But I know he'll do it in our church parking lot or at the Exchange. But will he do it at Target? And this is our city. Or frankly, I can bend over and pick up some garbage.
Yep.
And those are the things that if nobody sees it, God sees it and goes, oh, you are trustworthy. And the Bible says exactly what you said. If you can be trusted in little, you can be trusted in a lot. And that's a God principle.
Yeah.
Excellence is a choice. Sonny said just good enough should not be good enough for anyone. Giving 100% in wherever God has you can open the door to other opportunities that you have been waiting on or looking for. When has God trusted you with a little and then turned it into something much bigger? Share in the comments below. While you're commenting, we're going to get back into the conversation with Danielle and Sonny.
You felt the calling to ministry.
Right.
Early on, right? And you knew, and then that was like reaffirmed and so forth. But maybe you have a dream to,
Own a bunch of restaurants.
Own a bunch of restaurants.
Or a grocery
For
store.
whatever reason, what came to my head was like, build an amusement park. I don't know why that would be your dream.
Wow.
But, you know.
I received that. Let's do it. Okay.
Something that like seems super far off or not matching to that calling.
Right.
But you're like, I would really love to do that.
Yeah.
Or I just want to be an Instagram influencer.
Right. Well, I do have something that really isn't in my calling. I would love to get a history degree, like a master's level or even a doctorate level history degree. And then I'd like to be a little tour guide when I retire. That has nothing to do, although I'll always find a reason to point to Jesus. And if I know, well, this history all lines up with the rest of, you know, ancient history and all of that. But it is kind of this thing that doesn't matter for what I do, really what my calling is. It's just a dream. It just would be fun to me. I'd even like to not have to go work in it, just have the degree because I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think that I am waiting for when that season is right. And maybe some people are going to fulfill their dreams before they have a family. But I think most people choose that route. Like, I'm gonna do everything crazy before I have a family, but then they can get to having a family and they never really accomplish everything because maybe they didn't have the finances, they hadn't put in the time and the work to get to the dream. Then they have a family, it kind of sidetracks that to them. They can even kind of be irritated that their family, their spouse, their kids, like took their time and took them away from their dreams. So what if we just said, this maybe isn't my calling, because I think my calling right now is to have my kids, to be with my kids. Later, maybe I can go work on a history degree, but that's not going to do anything for my calling right now. Yeah. So can I put it on a shelf, not say it's dumb and I was wrong, just say that is going to happen, because I'm not going to have kids in my house forever. I'm 3 years away and 4 years away from my kids being in the house. And then I have a whole lot of life that I can do lots of different stuff in my free time. But we kind of want to fit it all in when we're 20 and 22, all right now.
Well,
but I wouldn't have had
like
the money.
Accomplished point of it
Yes.
as well.
Yes. So when Isaiah and Aubrey are gone, I will probably go see my friends in other cities. I'm probably not gonna, in fact, I've had a couple adult friendships, females that I've been friends with for years who they're like, you quit coming to see me. Like, you never come to my city. And I had to be real honest and say, it's not a priority right now. And they don't really like to hear that, but what's a priority is that when I travel, it'll be with my kids. Yeah. And otherwise, because we do travel, it's not like I just want to sit home, but I'm not gonna just leave my kids to go do a girl trip right now. For me right now, I'm looking at a clock going 3 years and 4 years, they're gone. But see, time goes so slow when we're young, and it speeds up as we get older. So I think to the 20, to the 25, to the 30-year-old, everything seems like it's dragging.
Taking forever.
And then there's this switch, but just know there's a switch, so just don't think it's taking forever. It's a daily, let me change my perspective.
So I think we kind of shifted a little bit to plans.
Yeah.
And we can, at least me, like certain personalities can be like, this is my plan. So I was the one who went to college and I knew on day one what I wanted to do and I never switched my major. And then obviously there's, different personalities who were like, and they tried 4 different majors before they left with their degree. But I think sometimes maybe we can get really caught on a plan.
Yes.
Right? And like, this is my plan and this is how it's going to go. And I'm going to be married by this age and I'm going to, do this by this age. And then all of a sudden that comes and goes, like that time that maybe you placed to it, and now your plan isn't coming together how you thought.
And that plan was sacred.
And and now you feel like, well, that didn't happen. Why? Like I wasn't good enough for that, or it didn't, or I failed at this, or whatever. Like, have you had a plan that didn't work out how you thought? And then how do you handle those feelings that you sort of get attacked with when your plan kind of crumbled because it was your plan,
Right.
and not God's plan?
Well, failure is the word that comes to mind. You just feel like a failure, and I failed, and I failed. I wanted to live somewhere forever because I heard longevity was really, really good. So I was like, we're gonna live in Memphis, Tennessee forever, and then we didn't. We lived there not even 2 years. Failure. I was gonna work here, couldn't get a job, failure. And and you know, if you're like, I wanna be married by 25, I wanna have kids by 27, I wanna be done having kids by 31, and then you're 30 and go, I'm not even married. Like, what do I need to do? And so you feel like failure. But it was like, was that ever something that would constitute win or loss? You know, victory or failure, or was that just your plan? So I think we can't make our plans so sacred, because the Bible actually talks about, you know, great and plenty are the plans of men and women, but God orders our steps. And we put them in a certain order with a certain time frame, and He orders them, and they may look a little bit windy and they may go slower than we imagined. But that's not a failure, that's Him ordering our steps. And now that we've moved 13 times, but we've lived here for 6.5 years, I finally go, maybe we're not failures when it comes to moving all the time. Because we haven't moved for 6.5 years. That's in 13 times in 13 years is a lot. But in 6.5 years, we haven't left this city. So actually, we're winning. But like, who says? Like, who was keeping track except me? So I think you can get wrapped up in, everybody's judging me, and nobody's keeping track of your time frame.
And
but you're judging yourself.
You placed that.
Yes.
You put that there, and you deemed what like success or failure would be for you, and then letting go of that can be really hard.
Freeing,
but
hard to do. Yes.
We're having so much fun with you this morning as we listen to the conversation. Watch this promo to see how you can stay connected to Jesus.Plus.Life beyond Wednesday mornings. When you add Jesus to your life, don't be surprised when your life changes. And with change come a lot of questions. That's why we're starting a conversation about the journey. You can join Sonny Hennessy, author of Jesus.Plus.Life, right here for a conversation each week. You'll hear questions from Jesus people just like you. Questions about living everyday life with Jesus. Every Tuesday, you'll get the latest conversation. You can subscribe wherever you like to listen. Jesus.Plus.Life, the podcast. Jesus.Plus.Life is all about adding Jesus truth to everyday life. And with the Jesus.Plus.Life podcast, you can listen anywhere and everywhere. So subscribe today. Now let's hear what else Sonny and Danielle have to say this week.
So I want to switch gears just a little bit, but kind of still in the same realm as a young adult. Another thing that's like lingering over your head a little bit, other than dreams and calling and what am I going to do with my life, is also dating and marriage and kids and family, and like, what am I going to do in that path of my life? And there's a couple of things. So let's start from the beginning. Dating, right? There's a story that you tell about how you and your now husband, Sean, started like on your first date. Could you tell that, and why? Like, why?
Well, you think it's funny, and it is quite funny. I was so embarrassed afterwards. Okay, so we went on a walk. It wasn't a date. He had told my roommate in college, hey, your girl Sonny, which is so Sean, hey, your girl Sonny, I think I want to get to know her. So the next day, we end up taking a walk with a group of people, and then Sean and I walk through the park a different direction. And so we're chatting, and immediately we were talking about everything in our life from our past and everything. I'm 17, I don't have a lot of past, but you know, I had some. So we're talking about that. We sit down under a tree, and I had just broke up with a boyfriend who I really wasn't into at all, but he was kind of a security blanket to go to college with. I was like, oh, you're going to the same college. Yes, I'll date you. You know, he had been asking, I'm like, yes. then I'll have security. And then we got there and I broke up with him. So I was like, I don't want to date anybody for like maybe college. Like that was in my head. You know how we have plans and I'm not going to date through college.
Yep.
Here I am, pre-college, we're in 2-a-day practices, haven't even started classes, and I'm sitting under a tree with this guy named Sean from Detroit, Windsor, and I'm like, he's scary in a way. But even thinking like, I've never dated anybody like this, just like rugged, and he was 20 years old or 21 or something. And we sit down and I look at him and I say, you know, if this isn't gonna end in marriage, we should probably end it now. And we both were kind of looking straight ahead because we weren't even on a date. We didn't even know each other. So we're kind of looking, and I didn't even look at him.
First time I'm talking to you.
First time I'm talking to you. Just said I broke up with a guy. I don't really want to, date. And then I say that, and it's literally like it just came out of my mouth. And I couldn't take it back, and I just kept looking forward. There was a long pause, and he kept looking forward. He goes, "Can I let you know in the morning?" And I was just like, oh, what did I do? And I'm like, yes, so we got up and awkwardly like walked apart. I thought I blew it. And I walked into my dorm room. I tell my roommate what happened. I said, I blew that. She goes, you did not say that. What are you doing? And the next morning he was throwing pebbles at my window, 3 stories up, and hitting the window to get my attention to come down and hang out. And he never addressed it. But we ended up getting married in 4 months. So obviously he addressed it.
Yeah.
But I still don't know how that just came out of my mouth. For sure it was in me, but it just came out of my mouth, and I just think I knew.
But it's something that you talk about and we talk about is like being intentional and dating like with purpose. Mm-hmm. So whether you like knew it or not at the time, that really like gave you a jump start. But mm-hmm. then you were on a pretty guided or direct path in mm-hmm. a way when you started. So what did like then going from there after you said it, so it's out.
Yeah.
Like what did that look like then being intentional in your relationship, knowing that that's where you wanted to go and you didn't want to mess around?
Well, going to Bible college, just the fact I was there, there was this different expectation I had on my life to say I should do this right, because I had dated in high school with no intention, with no rationality, just did it, just basically like, well, everybody dates, so just date, go to the movies, go driving in a car, go park the car, like just dumb. And I never thought about anything different. But there was something that shifted in me when I got to Bible college, because I did know, not just because I thought I'd be in ministry, but I just knew, okay, God probably wants more and better for me. And so the intentionality was, after that conversation, Sean had a little house he was renting, and he's asking me what color spatulas and like big utensils he should get, what color I like for the counter. And I'm like, we're talking about this, but it's like we both knew. We're not just doing this to like hang out mm-hmm. and to have fun. Like we really think we're the one. And I think that was the best decision I ever made. And it didn't lead to a 3-year engagement. It led to a 3-month engagement, because we also said we weren't pure when we met and we're gonna have a really hard time. And we did have a really hard time saying, let's have the foundation of this relationship start in purity and marriage be good and different and what it should be. And so we couldn't wait 3 years. Like we just couldn't. And that's okay. And we don't regret that we just had a shorter engagement and we dated intentionally.
I love that, because everybody's story with purity is a little bit different. Yeah. And I love that you guys are open about the fact that we weren't before we met mm-hmm. each other, but then we met and we chose different.
Yeah.
I love that story of like, you can choose differently mm-hmm. now. So even if you've messed it up before, purity isn't like a once and done shot.
Right.
Like, well, it's over, so might as well not worry about it.
Right.
You guys look to like correct that path.
And it's not easy, and we had to be careful. And anytime we were alone, we were at a riskier point. And I know that there's fewer people that remain pure till marriage. It's just more of a rarity, even though it's actually the way to go. But I've heard people who say, we just can't be alone. Especially as the wedding gets closer, or if we're alone, it's in public. But like we can't like chill at the apartment of one of us for hours. We can be alone in public. You know what I mean, right? Okay. We can't go and be at your house for 5 hours because we literally. That's how, like for Shauna and I, that wasn't an option.
Placing
it wouldn't have worked out.
Yes.
To help.
Planning before you are married is so important, and investing in your marriage is a necessity too. Check out this video about a marriage life conference that is happening in September.
You meet that person, hands tingle, your heart beats a little faster. You can't quite stop thinking about him or her, and you realize the love bug has taken a bite.
Or maybe you meet that person and you think, there's no way. This is not my person. Definitely not my type. Actually, you find them a little irritating.
But then something begins to change, and you see them differently, and the thought happens that maybe this could be something.
Maybe it's her smile.
Maybe it's his kindness or the way he holds your hand.
And then it happens. This is your person.
The proposal, the wedding, the dress, the tux, the photos, the vows.
The honeymoon.
You begin building your love story, your marriage story, alongside each other. Two have become one.
Not every moment is as great as that day, the day you said I do. There are times it's hard, and if we're honest, there are days it's a choice.
A choice to work together, to work through, to push through, and maybe even to get through.
This is marriage. Two people who have become one, two people alongside each other, laying a foundation, building a story.
We are inviting every marriage, every couple to be a part of the Marriage Life Conference, a conference designed to build upon whatever foundation you have already started, to continue to build your marriage story.
It doesn't matter if you're dating, getting married this year, been married for 1 year, 5 years, 20 or 40 years. This conference is for marriages who want to continue to build upon the foundation already started.
Great marriages take time.
Great marriages are work.
Great marriages are intentional.
Great marriages are built.
We hope you plan to join us for the Marriage Life Conference. The link for the registration is listed below. Let's wrap up this week's episode with one more conversation between Sonny and Danielle.
I think early on, trying to figure all of this out, you can stumble across a lot of heartbreak. And there was a moment a few years ago where I was in my office super teary-eyed after a heartbreak. And you came in and then you're teary-eyed and you're like, no, I'm gonna cry. And you told me to write down everything that he wasn't. And everything that I had hoped that he would be, and to do it when it was like super raw and fresh, and then to like pray over that and like look for that in the next. And I thought that was like some of the best advice, and I did it. Like I wrote down, and I had like a list before, but I think that there's a difference in like, okay, here's like my,
What I want list.
top 10 of like, here's what I want list. But then operating out of like this really raw heartbreak and looking at exactly what went wrong and why and what you're looking for. What were some of the things like that either you found in Sean and you didn't know that you were looking for, or were the things when you decided, okay, I want to do this differently? I had done just like the for fun dating that made like a list, or that you were looking for to do it right and to look for a Jesus-centered relationship?
Well, in high school, I didn't have a list. Boys that were cute were good for me. That works. And I was even like a Christian. I didn't really go to church a lot. My family was kind of out of church in really critical years of my life. But I didn't have a list. So them being a Jesus person themselves, I'm like, is that even possible? Who's out there? And that was my downfall. With Sean, it wasn't that I even had created a list.
No.
It's just he actually was there and he did love Jesus. Now, he didn't have it all worked out, but he had accepted Jesus and is going to get his degree in Bible college. So it was like I didn't need a list when he had God first. And I think that we can have a long list, but if the number one and the non-negotiable is Jesus, they love and have a relationship and operate in that. Like they see the Bible as truth. What is 2 through 9? Like who cares?
Well, if they're aiming to look like Jesus, then they're loving and caring and generous, and like then some of those things that you could list.
Right.
Make the list.
Well, and the guys that sometimes you can date, or maybe you dated, that they were 8 out of 10 on the what I want in a guy list, but maybe they're open to Jesus because they're dating you, but it wasn't their top priority. You go,
Yes.
well, now they're
Yep.
now they're coming to church, and we equate coming to church with me as having a relationship with Jesus. So we go, oh, that's okay. That kind of, we'll mark that. But then you take the list after or even when you're dating them and go, what are some things that are going wrong
Yeah.
or that aren't okay with me?
Yeah.
And you start to list that even before a breakup, and you go, maybe this person is wrong for me.
Well, and I think when you like actually look at it though, because when it's something kind of comes across your path, you get pretty starry-eyed and everything is unicorns and rainbows and wonderful. So
You burn the list.
you're like, well, or you start making like stretching it a little bit or making the exceptions and going like, so then defining what like being a Jesus person like to the core looks like to you.
Right.
Like, are they following these principles?
Right.
Are they, you know?
Well, my kids answer when they're like, oh, I really, I think this, Aubrey's not doing this much, but Isaiah, if he's 16 now. So if he's like, this girl's cute, or I like this girl, I'm like, is she a Jesus person? Well, she goes to church. What church? Sometimes they don't know what church. And first of all, I'm like, church is not the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that's a huge step, but that you didn't answer my question. Are they a Jesus person? And then, well, yeah, I think, well, that one, fruit is going to show up, but like that's a conversation to go ahead and have, even if you're 16.
Do they tithe? That they show that they put God first.
Right.
Before, I mean, for me, that was like a huge thing from the get-go, because it was like a physical act that showed that they would put God first.
That's so good. And you tithe, so you get into a marriage and they don't believe in tithing.
Yeah.
They don't believe in putting God first with their money. They could be like, hey, this is a joint account you don't get to. And suddenly they take away a biblical principle that you live your life by, because two become one. Yeah. And you've married someone that when you became one, it felt not quite one. Because they're so on a different page, and we shortchange ourselves too often. And I think that marriages that struggle, Sean and I, our struggles came from our past mistakes. And so all of that has to be taken into consideration. How bad is the baggage? It's not always, at first it's exciting to go, oh, he's a bad boy.
Yeah.
That doesn't work out really well in marriage. Like, go ahead and deal with those issues, maybe get the counseling, get the help, see if he's gonna submit that to Jesus, or vice versa, then consider going further in the relationship, because it will all carry in. It will all carry into marriage.
That's true. I think that's really helpful stuff.
We hope this conversation got you thinking about some things happening in your life. Maybe it is going back to your dreams and deciding what steps to take to make them happen. Maybe it is praying for God to reveal your calling. Or maybe it is making some list of what you're looking for in a relationship, including your non-negotiables. We're so glad you joined us today. You can stay connected to Jesus.Plus.Life all week by joining our Facebook group. We would love to continue our conversation with you there. Make sure to set your reminders for next week and join us again for another cheery conversation. See you next week.